What's going on, guys? It's Aegis here, back with another video. Earlier today I did a re-upload of my force field video. However, I wanted to keep the channel still current and in the meta that we are, facing. The force field video was a day one video of the meta. So a lot of the things that I got away with there, and I do discuss that in the video, you probably won't be able to get away with now. The biggest one being that I passed up shield bash for reel him in. That's a very interesting choice. Again, first day, didn't really understand what was going on. That's a different video. This one is a more current video that works in this patch now that deals with one of my favorite items, Trebuchet. So if you don't know, Trebuchet was changed. Now every time you upgrade it, it gains a second of charge. Before, every time you upgraded it, it got more damage and more burn. But with the upgrades now, it almost makes it better than it was in last patch, because in last patch your goal was to build as much burn on the Trebuchet as possible, and proc it as much with the 1 second of charge that you have. But now with it charging 4 seconds every time you upgrade it, the emphasis on building burn on it is a lot less in a meta where it's a lot harder to get some of those burn items that increase your burn. Like, there's only a couple methods that you can do it. There's the Artisan Dunes event, there's Curio, there's the possible loot items that you get when you level up, and there's also the possible chance of loot items as an event every day. And I think those are the 4 ways that you can increase your burn. There might be 1 or 2 other ways that I'm not thinking of, but those are the 4 main ways that you can increase burn on the Trebuchet. So with that, you don't need as much burn this meta on the Trebuchet, because you proc it so much more. And I think towards the end of this video I showcased that really well, that if you get a really good Trebuchet and get really good procs behind it, the burn on it, it needs to be decent, around 20 to 25-ish, but it doesn't need to be anywhere near what it needed to be last meta. And with the meta kind of shifting away from the loot items, it makes it a lot easier to still run Treb. Which is an absolutely insane and kind of even, like I said, better / more broken item than last patch. If you get the right things going with it. And you'll see what I'm saying towards the end of the video. But right now we just start with a basic Treb. We have Shark Claws. We started with Shark Claws as our first item, just to scale the damage. And Treb early is also really strong, even on 10 seconds still. Especially when you get it to silver, it basically feels like it's better than the Treb that you had previously, because it's 10 seconds, but you charge it 2 seconds every time you use a weapon, which essentially, if you're using your weapons fast enough, kind of makes it more of a 5-second item, and that's already lower and faster procs than what you were getting last meta with the 1 seconds. And it's not like last meta didn't proc enough to be absolutely disgusting. It was very good last meta as well. But Treb is just one of those items that wasn't really nerfed. It's been good for a long period of time. So we get a couple good things here: the feathers and the as well as the friend for the burn damage. But the feathers and the knee brace are probably 2 of the bigger things that you're gonna want to be looking for with Treb. Again, it's a 10-second item, so anything that you can, especially if you get a knee brace, anything that you can take off of that is disgusting. I do make a mistake there. I sell the first feather before I put down the knee brace. That was a mistake. I just realized that now. But yeah, you get the idea. You want a knee brace. You want to. Curio's really helpful with Treb build. He gives you a lot of things that can help you. The cooldown reduction is really good. Sometimes you have slow items, so adding the slow to items is good. And also, being able to build burn, the possibility of him having the Fury Lizard or whatever it's called, and being able to build burn on your Treb is really good. Because you do want to have I don't want it to seem like you don't want to have the mindset of building burn on your Treb. That should still be your main mindset, I feel like, with this build. Damage will normally come with the Treb. You'll normally get heavy weaponry or something that's good to increase damage. However, to build burn on the Treb is a bit harder this meta, so every instance that you can build burn on the Treb, I think you kind of go for when you're going to build like this. Burn is really, really valuable on the Trebuchet. Because of just how much it procs in this meta, you end up burning people, I feel like, even more than last meta. Because you would burn people for a lot in one instance last meta, but it's just so many procs of burn in this meta that it actually just becomes insane. Especially if you can put Radiant or something on the Trebuchet, it's one of the better Vanessa builds out right now, I would say. For combating a lot of these instant charge builds, you just get a really large instant charge item. And stack as many skills on that item as you possibly can. So if you can get the slow skill, if you can get some freeze skills, if you can get whatever, to interrupt some of those chains that we've been seeing, those those fully hasted charge chains that we've been seeing with scaling, it's huge. And Treb will fire off, from what I've seen, you can easily get Treb to fire off way faster in scale while it's firing than all of those builds, which is absolutely disgusting if you get the right skills and abilities. It's definitely a very viable competitor to the Vanessas that are spamming, Turtle Shell, Astrolabe, Pufferfish, and the pigs that are spamming Piggy Matchbox, or I guess Matchbox now, Marbles, and Yo-Yo, and Model Ship and stuff like that. It's a very good answer. A big reason why Treb is a good answer is because any item that's not a small item in this meta that can charge itself and kind of compete with it will always kind of be a good item right now. Just because of the prevalence of marbles in the meta, as long as you're not slowing your main source of doing something in a build, and you're kind of moving away from some of the smaller items, it can feel a lot better than having a shit ton of small items and just watching them get slowed, right? And this guy already has marbles, he's already kind of going for the build. We've got weights, got a bunch of small items. We end up proccing Treb fast enough because not all of our items are small. And you'll see that purposely in this video, I try and avoid having too many small items, and I think that that's kind of a big key in the Bazaar right now, is that you generally want to avoid having smaller items because of there just being so many pigs running the marbles, and marbles are probably one of the most broken things right now in terms of the instant charge builds. Marbles have always been good, but they really made marbles go to the moon with this last meta. So with that said, I'm just trying to build as much damage and burn on the Treb as possible right now. I am fully committed into being a Treb build. I think I understand that this game. So we're just trying to proc the Treb as much as possible. We take the Cutlass instead of the double barrel. Even though the double barrel does get damage, we don't have any way to reload it. The Cutlass makes sure that, we continually have an item that can proc the Treb. So here I think that I'm looking at selling off the improvised bludgeon. I kind of feel weird because I can sell off the improvised bludgeon and the old sword, which I do think I eventually do for the hand axe, because it does feel kind of weird right now. I did want to keep the improvised the real reason why I like to try and keep the improvised bludgeons and anything like that is if I get any type of slow enchant or slowing weapon. I haven't been able to make proboscis work yet, unfortunately, and that I really want to make a video behind. This could have been the proboscis Treb build, but eventually we do cycle out of proboscis, so I don't think we can call it that at all. It really just is a Treb build where Treb is featured at the end and in all its glory and all its absolute kind of, for some people I guess watching, stupidity. But with the probe, I was thinking of possibly getting one type of slow item. I know that bolas slow with their ammo, and that's what I was kind of thinking about. Like maybe if I scale the ammo on bolas, or we get some type of slow item that or slow enchant that consistently procs, we could, like, this build would be very broken with probe in it. And I just kind of want to throw that out there, just in case someone else is like in a game kind of like this and you have probe offered to you. Like keeping a probis, a probosis. I always want to say probiscus. A probosis on you can be really, really big. Just in case you get, you know, you're able to upgrade it maybe once or twice, and you get like a slow enchant or something, and you have a weapon that instantly charges on your slow enchant. That's instantly giving charge to your trebuchet. But unfortunately for us, that doesn't work out this game. I think eventually we sell off the probe, and we're just kind of focused on trying to proc the trebuchet as much as possible. Again, now at silver, the trebuchet reads, whenever I use a weapon or haste, charge this twice. So we're using our weapons a decent amount. I'm trying to get as many weapon procs in early. I feel like that's kind of how you work with Treb, is early on you try and get as many weapon procs as possible, and later on you try and find as many sources of haste as possible, because it charges itself on haste as well, so then it also gains the benefit of being hasted. So it just makes it a lot quicker overall. So yeah, with the trebuchet being hasted, it makes it proc so much faster. I think it's just a lot more efficient later game to go for sources of haste. But right now we have lifting. It's one of the first skills that we got. So lifting, iron sharpens iron, and augmented weaponry are still in the game. If you go any type of weapons build, they're kind of needed in this meta. I have seen some weapons builds succeed, even with augmented weaponry being later in the game, even with iron sharpens iron and lifting kind of being harder to find. There have been some single weapon builds and some multi-weapon builds that I have seen succeed based off of just having these items, and they've beaten me. So it's still very viable to scale your weapons off of these items, even though, you know, it seems like they were indirectly nerfed by just being harder to find / coming at a later day. That was a big nerf to weaponry that happened, augmented weaponry that happened last patch. Is they made it come, I think, at day 6 now, and it used to be a day 3 skill. So the scaling that you get from it is just a lot later in your run, and I think that that's a good nerf to make to items like that. As far as like, if you feel like the scaling is too OP, don't remove the item, just make it a little bit later in the day, because that is, again, a resource in this game is your hours and your days. So the less of that you have, the less time that you're able to scale it. It makes things certainly more balanced. But we get the treb up to gold, which is huge, because that basically guarantees within, you know, eventually we'll get a diamond treb whenever we get the option to just upgrade, post 10, upgrade any item that we want to. So from here, I think at diamond treb is when you can start kind of looking for, because you're charging 3 seconds, you can start kind of looking for the haste options, if you can get a couple of them.
You're a smart one for your size.
But for the most part, I'm looking for haste options while buying weapons in order to just scale off of lifting as much as possible. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think I take out the probe for the revolver, because the probe we haven't gotten any sources of slow, and I'm kind of dejected on us getting sources of slow, because there's a couple other things that, even if they offered us a source of slow, that I'd kind of want more in a build like this. Different procs of haste, maybe a freeze, stuff like that is probably things that I'd take over a slow personally. And I know that this isn't really a probe build. This is going to be a treb build, so I'm kind of just more focused on that right now and procking that as much as possible. And revolver does proc without any sources of slow, and we don't have any. Revolver does proc trebuchet faster than probe at bronze, even probe at any level, because probe only upgrades its charge when you, or can charge when you slow. So if I don't have any slows, it's just not gonna work out. But yeah, we're just buying weapons. Just buying weapons, empowering it off of lifting. I think if you, like I said, if you can get lifting, iron sharpens iron, or augmented weaponry, building around those skills is still very strong in this game. There are people that are kind of going for it early and getting it, and they're just building their entire builds around those skills, and they're really good. They're really good. So here I get a weapon for the damage. I could have gotten the XP, but we have 15 gold, so getting the 5 gold is kind of here or there. That also sold for 6, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. We're pretty good on XP. We're almost level 8 by this day. I do think that we lose to the Infernal. I'm not sure we proc this fast enough. But like, these guys are really scary, right? Because you just never know. We do have Petrifying Gaze, which yeah, that just puts us ahead. Like, we were 2 ticks away from death. 263 burn. We were cutting it close there, but we make it out. We get the Diamond Cinder, which feels nice to get from him, because that's just burn in a meta that doesn't, build burn. And then we get Conflag. Now, Conflag was good. I'm so glad I got Conflag in this build, because I can talk about Conflag now. I normally don't get Conflag, so I can't talk about this skill. But now, since I have it in a build that actually is making it to YouTube, I never get Conflag, and I look for it so much. Conflag is a really, really good skill. I mean, it was good before, when you hasted and proc the Treb on a way less cooldown. As far as like, you had the 1 charge on the Treb and you were trying to build as much burn as possible. Even gaining 1 burn based off of that was, every time you use the Treb, was really good. But now it's absolutely insane. Conflag is probably the best, or like, as far as doing burn damage to the enemy, it's the best burn skill that you can probably have in a Trebuchet build. For the main reason that you're using Trebuchet a lot more, and what Conflag reads is whenever you use a burn item, increases the burn by 1. So with you being able to charge it more, give it haste, and for it to absolutely go ham once those things happen, you'll see like quickly throughout the course of fights, like you scale, even if people were really, really scaling, you'll scale past their some of their choke points, and even past previous metas where you were building 50 burn. At times you can build up to 60, 70 burn. However, with this, we are going into the typical meta, infinite charge shell, the pearl, and the puffer. So we're getting absolutely destroyed here. The meta builds are still kind of tough for this to face early on. You'll see later what makes it a lot easier for us to face some of these more meta builds. Continue stacking those cinders. I love it. We get another cinder there. Even though it's 1 burn now, since they moved all the loot items up 1 tier, that was part of the nerf that they did to some of the loot items. They moved them all up 1 tier, so now cinder at bronze gives you 1 burn. At silver gives you 1 burn. Before it was at bronze. So that's kind of the main thing that they did to the loot items, other than making them not really as available, or only 1 be available during level up. I'm thinking about this swashbuckle, because I did try and make Treb work right before this, and I had a swashbuckle in it, and it was absolutely disgusting, but we were too late in facing insane opponents, and it just didn't work out. So I was thinking about it there, but we just don't have the crit for it in this build. We had really, really good crit, because I think in the last one we had inexorable, so our Treb had insane crit, but it just didn't work out. While our Treb did really good damage in the last build, it just didn't proc enough. And that's kind of what I'm focused on this one, this time around, is for it to proc. And we get an insane skill, Bonk. So Bonk is one of the 3 ways to increase enemy cooldowns. I've talked about it before on the channel. I guess I'll say it again. Bonk, Chrono Barrier, Fort are very, very good skills in the game because they're one of the only ways to interact with enemy cooldowns in a meta where everything's instantly charging. So you could possibly disrupt that instant charge with increasing their cooldowns. There's always that possibility, especially this kind of checks the instant charge builds in the fact that they have to increase their charge cycling to be better than their cooldowns. Whenever you have items like that, like Fort, like Chrono Barrier, and like Bomb, they just have to have better charge scaling, lower cooldown on their charging items to make sure that the infinite loop goes. And even disrupting that a little bit, like making a certain item's infinite loop not go off as much as, you know, they would want it to, is absolutely disgusting. So at 10 we get a Radiant Treb, which is absolutely nasty. You can see here it's, you know, it won't be affected by slow for the rest of the game. Getting Radiant on any of your main items in this build is definitely like a big thing to do. For the most part, a lot of people, like, the biggest way that people slow items, or anyone slows items, is just Pig's Marbles. However, there's always that possibility that you go up against, you know, an instant charging slow enchant that is also really, really popular this meta. And if you go up against something like that, you're definitely going to want your main weapon proccing as much as possible. You'll most likely still lose because you can't make your entire board Radiant. And that's like the biggest complaint of this meta, I think, for a lot of people, is like when you have some of these instant charge items with some of the enchants that you can get on them, like slowing, you know, the only thing that you can do, and I think I showed this off in the Piggy Matchbox video that I posted the other day. Like, I get a slowing Matchbox, right? Like, the only thing that you can do against that is have your entire board be Radiant. My Matchbox slows 2 items for like 3 seconds, and it triggers like crazy. So like the only thing that like you could do to avoid that slow is have your entire board be Radiant, and that's just not fair to ask for players because that's not realistic. So they're definitely gonna have to take a look at that type of stuff. But that being said, we do have the Treb at Radiant, we do have Conflag, we have Bonk, we have Lifting. We're feeling pretty dang good about this build right now. Overall, I'm feeling pretty good. I think I take Stunning Strike here, or I take Oceanic Rush. Oh yeah, for the Captain's Wheel, yeah, that is better. Take Oceanic Rush to get our chain started sooner. And tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that, I think I have a build that utilizes that skill in the middle. It's a skill that I had no idea about, and it's absolutely disgusting. I don't know if I get it in this build, and I can talk about it now, or I'll talk about it tomorrow, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit because I really like it. That skill in the middle there, from Monster Skills, Zerfin, back at that encounter, was called, it's called Anything to Win. And what that does is every time I think you use a non-weapon item, or yeah, I think anytime you use a non-weapon item, it burns and poisons one. So I think I have a build coming out. I think I played with it yesterday and I won with it. I think I have a build coming out soon with something like that. And it's a really interesting skill that I haven't seen too many people pick up, but it's absolutely disgusting when you can get your hands on it, because it ends up being, in one of my builds, it ends up being half my burn, or like basically half my damage that I'm doing to the enemy. I'm not sure if it's this build or another build though. I think it might be this build that we eventually pick it up. I'm not sure. But yeah, day 9, I mean, the Treb has been good, right? But I haven't been able to show you why the Treb is truly broken yet in any of these fights. The Treb is good. It's carrying its own. I'm able to beat, you know, most opponents pretty easily. It's charging quite a lot, as you can see. But this isn't like as bad as the Treb gets. And you'll see like what I mean by that by the end of this video. Like, you can get it a lot better than this. And eventually we get it up to Diamond, and it's insane what the Treb is able to do when you get it up to diamond and you get the right items. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but this build goes from, like, you know, being like, right now I could easily win 10, I think, with this. It goes from being, and that's Artisan Dunes, that's the one that I was talking about, that the few ways to increase your burn is flame right there, that increases your burn, and then I get to upgrade the Trebuchet there. So that's huge. You get 2 burn on the Treb, and I'm able to upgrade it to diamond. Now every time I use, every time I haste or use a weapon, I charge it 4 seconds, which is absolutely insane. So it'll proc way more now, but we're not even finished with that yet. It's gonna end up procking even more than it does here. So it procs a lot here, which is decent. You know, it's doing pretty good stuff. I really like the captains. I really like some of the stuff that we have going on. And yeah, it's doing what it needs to do against some of these other builds. That was a probe build that just kind of gets wrecked by the Trebuchet. Just because it's honestly a better item, I think, than the probe. Probe needs a lot of things. If you're gonna go a probe single build, it needs a lot of things for it to work. Trebuchet just needs to be there, truly, to gain some sort of source of haste and to use some type of weapon, which is literally Vanessa's identity. Or at least those 2 things are big in her identity, right? So it's a lot easier to build than I think probe. Slow is easy to build for Vanessa because that's also part of her identity. But overall, I think that because it's a smaller weapon, because it's harder to scale, you don't have burn on it, you can't scale certain things on it innately, it is a little bit harder to do probe by itself. That doesn't mean that probe is a bad item. It's a very good item. It's just harder to do it by itself. So we get a large diamond water wheel, and we have enough money to buy it if we sold off our stuff, and I think we do. Yeah, we start selling. We buy that because a diamond water wheel, I mean, it's gonna haste our items pretty consecutively, especially with the cutlass over there. And in my mind right now, I think it's going to be good, but I don't think I know how good it can be. And this is kind of shows you how insane this kind of gets. It's just a machine gun. It's actually just a machine gun now. Like, it's actually just a machine gun now. It's insane. When we pick up the diamond water wheel, this is what I was talking about, by the way. Last turn is like, we're gonna get to a point where we're way more powerful in just a turn, and this is what I meant. When we pick up the diamond water wheel, this build turns into Insano style. Like, some of the fastest weapon procs outside of the instant knife Vanessa in the early part of the game that I've seen. Or like Armadillo, or like, you know, some of those items that have clearly been removed because they're really broken. We kind of get there with Treb. As far as, like, it's just a machine gun. It's just a machine gun. I think I take knife tricks here too, which just makes it absolutely insane. Just bonkers insane. Now every time we use it, it reduces its cooldown by 5%. So we end up using it faster over the course of the fight, and it just truly becomes like a fire, like a dragon breath machine gun. It's insane. So we trigger it there, and then as soon as the captain's wheel goes off, it's boom, 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 boom. That's it. This captain's wheel goes off, and then we also have petrifying gaze. And normally I can't make too much use out of petrifying gaze because of the fact that, you know, I freeze items and maybe I have a couple status effects going, but it's nothing crazy. Here I can actually make, and I'm glad I rewatched this, here I can actually make use of petrifying gaze because it's just like, as soon as we freeze his items, because of knife tricks, our Treb just goes, like, over the course of the fight, just goes absolutely more berserk. Like, its fire rate just increases like crazy. So like, in the beginning of a fight when it's proccing like that, it's the slowest that it'll be, and every time it procs, it just gets faster and faster and faster. So it just goes insane towards the end in some of these fights. Like, I just love showing it off. Like, that's crazy to me. the fact that it's doing that much and it's just proccing that much is absolutely insane. And it's also radiant, so good luck slowing it. You could slow the water wheel, yes. You could slow the captain's wheel, yes. You could slow the cutlass, yes. You're not going to slow the trebuchet, so you just got to hope that you get your slows out in enough time. And it's for enough. I think that would be the biggest counter to this build but it's almost the biggest counter to every build is mass slow, right? Like that would counter almost every build that needs something to charge. And even then, this build's somewhat competitive because the treb still does get to go off. However, you know, it's probably a lot less competitive into mass slow. But I think that mass slow, if you can truly build the damage behind it and you get a lot of slow, is one of the better builds for this meta. We're just reducing the cooldown. We're trying to make the treb as broken as possible, but we're basically there here. Like this is it. This is what the build looks like. It's machine gun treb until, you know, until it fails. I do go up against this. I think it's a little, I wanted to challenge myself and I really thought I could do it, but I also forget that this guy has calitropes, which are insane. I'm killing myself on my hasted weapon procs, and then he also stones my my captain's wheel. So, you know, I challenge Void Golem for fun, but normally gets stomped. I'm pretty sure that's probably a lot of other people's experience with Void Golem too. It's like I beat him at times. I think in the earlier video today, the force field video that I re-upload, I actually do beat the Void Golem, but with this build, surprisingly, I can't. I think it's mostly because it's the captain's wheel that gets stoned first. If it's something like the cutlass, I actually do think that we possibly get off the treb enough to beat him. But then again, there's the calitropes that will most likely kill us before we can. But yeah, last fight, machine gun treb. Here it is, increasing its cooldown. He's got baby, so he's looking to eat some small items, but we don't have more than 4, so he can't eat anything. That's a big thing. A lot of dualies are going into item destruction. If you don't have more than 4 items, they can't destroy anything. So baby's kind of useless. That lizard's useless. Everything's useless. We're just built better right now. And that's basically it. That is the trebuchet. Give it as much haste towards the end of the game as possible. Have as many weapons as you need in the beginning of the game as possible, and you will, too, have a very powerful trebuchet. Go for all the skills that you can. Conflax, sick. Knife tricks is sick. Bonk, of course, we all know, is sick. Rush is sick. You know, go for as many skills as you can. Get your build started as best as you can, and that's basically it. So thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. See you in the next one. Peace.